Can the best-selling classic vibe Stratocaster smoke the top-shelf American-made Strat? I'm gonna bring you a head-to-head battle and we'll find out. Today I'm going to compare the Classic Vibe series from Squier with a guitar that's more than 5 times its price, the American Vintage II 1965 Stratocaster. And in the middle, I'll even bring you a close look at the Vintera II series. These are all vintage-inspired Stratocasters, and one of the points here is that there's one that's right at every budget, but we'll find out which one's best for you. Hey everybody, it's John from Play and Trade Guitars, and if you like new guitar reviews, comparisons, and informative buyer's guides, hit subscribe so you don't miss any videos here on the channel. I'm gonna give you a breakdown of specs. I put these guitars on the bench and pulled them apart. Of course, I'm gonna plug them in and play them. And I'll even give you a head-to-head performance. The results might surprise you. After the performance, I'll give you my raw reaction to playing all 3 guitars, so stick with me to the end. And if you are in the market for any new gear, including any of these Strats, click to buy new gear using my link. You'll find it pinned in the comments or down below in the description. And if you're watching on a TV, just scan this QR code and you can shop on your smartphone. All right, without further ado, let's get started in this head-to-head battle. Classic Vibe versus Vintera II versus American Vintage II. I can't wait to see which guitar wins. Here's the Classic Vibe 60 Strat for under $500 at $449, 3-color sunburst or this super cool candy apple red, and it's a great vintage inspired Strat for under 500 bucks. Middle of the road here, I love this series. Vintera II 60 Strat is one of my absolute favorites. These are made in Mexico, whereas the Classic Vibe is made in Indonesia. The made in Mexico Stratocaster here is going to have a true rosewood fretboard, fantastic sounding pickups in the Vintera II series, and just a higher attention to quality and detail. And then our top shelf, top of the line guitar here is the Fender American Vintage II 1965 Strat. And this guitar goes the distance. Every time I open the case on an American Vintage II guitar, I get knocked over. I am truly wowed. This guitar, what they did with this series is make year-by-year recreations of iconic, legendary Fender guitars, and the 1965 Strat is no exception. And you can see it's at $24.19. So we're talking more than 5 times the price of the Classic Vibe, and that's where we're gonna dial in today and say, for all that extra money, what is the sonic difference? And that's what really counts, right? We'll find out. All right, so first up is the Squier Classic Vibe. Here it is. It's got this nice aged gloss finish on the neck, and this neck is more modern, so that's a standout feature of the Classic Vibe. Classic Vibe, we do have the modern truss rod adjustment. Neck measurements were 1.65 inches at the nut, 0.8 inches at the first, up to 0.87 inches at the 12th. It's a little easier to play because it's got a modern 9.5-inch radius on the fretboard, and it's got a slimmer C-shaped neck, so very modern, playable experience. It's got this laurel fretboard, which really does feel quite a bit like rosewood. I got no issues with laurel, and just budget woods are used in general to keep the cost down on these guitars. And it's got, as you can see, the vintage slot style tuners. It's got the vintage trem, and it's got these great sounding single coil pickups. Fairly hot for a Strat, 6.3 in bridge, 5.9 in middle, 5.6 in neck. And then you have these Alpha import pots, 250K import pots, all hand wired. A modding platform, you've got more options here from the factory with routes for a humbucker in bridge position. And this Strat, I'm telling you, these pickups always read a little bit hotter in the Classic Vibe series, and they always knock me over with how good they sound. They will surprise you. Wait till you hear the playing demos. This guitar is a contender for sure. We'll see if it could take on the American Vintage II. But there is a look at the Classic Vibe. Well, let's check out the Vintera II now. The Vintera II series is one of my favorites, and it definitely has a more premium feel. And also, it's a little bit more correct in terms of the vintage specs that they went for a 60s style Stratocaster. It's gonna have a beefier neck. This guitar actually has the beefiest neck of all 3, believe it or not. So it's gonna have a deeper C-shaped profile. Not crazy, but it is noticeably thicker than the Squier. It's gonna have a beautiful true rosewood fretboard. Same style tuners, just higher quality components. So you'll notice as you go up in price, the quality of the components, you'll move from kind of a pot metal, cheaper feel on some of the hardware of the Squier up to a more refined, higher quality experience on the hardware of something like the Vintera II. We are 1.65 inches at the nut, 0.84 inches at the first, up to 0.98 inches at the 12th. Rosewood fretboard and a vintage style truss rod adjustment. These Vintera II series pickups sound fantastic, and they read 5-1 across the board in bridge, middle, and neck. You can see it's all hand wired. We have premium CTS 250K pots and the 5-way selector switch. Alder body is routed just for the single coil pickups. Beautiful Lake Placid blue finish. There's an Olympic white, which is killer as well. And this is just a fantastic guitar. The vintage inspired guitars that come out of the Vintera II line are some of the best that Fender makes, in my opinion. Trust me on that. All right, let's check out the top shelf Vintage II. All right, how beautiful is that shoreline gold? Incredible guitar here, 1965 Strat, and just attention to detail is fantastic in this series. You have a true nitrocellulose finish as they used in the 60s at Fender, a Meteor C-profile neck. The Vintera II is only slightly thicker than this one, but they basically have about the same neck profile compared to the slimmer profile on the Classic Vibe series. 1.65 inches at the nut, 0.83 inches at the first, up to 0.87 inches at the 12th. So let's go ahead and flip up this pickguard and take a look underneath. Cloth wiring, hand wired, premium features. Look at that cap, that's very cool. And this is something I want to point out too, is the quality of screws, hardware, components, everything on the higher end guitars is just much higher quality and built to last. Everything from your output jack to your bridge, it just feels more premium and expensive, and it'll last through the years. You even get little details like the ashtray bridge here on a Strat, which is pretty cool. Whereas they use a budget natto wood on the Squier, they use alder on the Vintera II and this guitar. And I'm telling you, when you get the hard shell case and open it up and see this come out, it'll really take your breath away. It is that good. Now the important part, of course, I'll remind you before we plug these guitars in, if you're in the market for any new gear, click to buy new gear using my link. It helps me and it's a win-win for you as well. And make sure you hit subscribe. If you like Gibson Les Pauls, in fact, this red one right over my shoulder, that guitar is going to one of you when we hit 100,000 subscribers. You must be subscribed to win, so get in it to win it and join this community of guitar players and traders. All right, let's get plugged in. I'm gonna show you clean tones, we'll dirty it up, and then we'll put all three guitars in a head-to-head battle to find out which one reigns supreme. Let's get started. Drop a comment as we go. I'll see you on the other side of the performances for my raw reaction to playing all three guitars, and we'll break down which is the right guitar and why. I'll even give you my winner. So let's get started. I can't wait to plug in and make some noise. right, what did you think? You stuck with me to the end, so I'll give you my honest reaction to playing all three of these guitars. Wildly different price points, but I'll tell you what, there was actually a clear winner in my mind, and I'll get to that. I'll remind you to hit subscribe. I'm giving away this Gibson Les Paul over my shoulder. You gotta be subscribed to win, and when you subscribe, you won't miss a single guitar review on Play and Trade Guitars, so thanks for being a part of this community. Let's talk about these three guitars, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments. We can talk about these. Let's kick it off with the Squier Classic Vibe. I'll tell you what, these guitars remain one of the best options on the market at an affordable price. If you're not someone who typically plays a Stratocaster but you want one in your collection, this is a great way to do it. These guitars sound consistently fantastic and it's extremely playable. You get the vintage aesthetic with this guitar, but you don't have the hassle of things like a smaller radius, which is a little more humped, and you don't have as thick of a neck. So if you want an ultra playable guitar, which is also a good mod platform, you saw, for example, that they had routed for additional humbuckers under here. This guitar gives you a lot of options and a lot of headroom for upgrades if you want. But I'll tell you what, these stock designed by Fender Alnico pickups sound fantastic. They really do. I mean, consistently the Classic Vibe series delivers on sound. And ultra playable and a great value. And I'll tell you what, this guitar is a winner for under 500 bucks. The standout is that slim neck. It's gonna set it apart from the other two, which have very similar neck profiles. Let's talk about Vintera II. All right, Vintera II is one of my favorite series from Fender. I mean that, because first of all, I personally love the vintage aesthetic that these series go for, and Vintera II is one of the best options, and it remains affordable from Fender. These are made in Mexico. I can tell you consistently the feel of the neck, the sound of these pickups, this is the entire package. You don't need to do a thing to this guitar. I reviewed a couple of these on the channel now, and consistently they are my favorite. There was a clear winner in this bunch, and I'll get to that, but this guitar truly delivered. I'm someone, when it comes to a Fender, I love maple necks, but I love the feel and characteristic of rosewood on a 60s style Tele or Strat. And in the case of this Vintera II 60 Strat, this beautiful piece of rosewood is a premium feature. I wish it did have a case, so you'd want to get yourself a case. It does come with a gig bag, which is nice. And actually those Fender gig bags are super handy for traveling and for gigging, hence the name. But fantastic. This had the thickest neck of the bunch. Nothing about this guitar got in my way while I was playing it. It was a fantastic experience, and the sound of the pickups, I'm gonna just give you something straight here. These were the best sounding pickups in my opinion. I loved this guitar. I loved it last time, I love it this time. Vintera II 60 Strat. If you wanna just be lazy, be done, one and done, great price, Vintera II is a great, great option. All right, and then let's talk about that beautiful 1965 Strat. All right, this is a player and collector's dream. They really nailed the 1965 aesthetic. It reminds me quite a bit actually of the Vintera II, I'm gonna be honest with you. However, this with the hard shell case and the ultra attention to detail, it's just a standout. I adore these guitars. Yes, they are expensive, but they are worth the money. This is the only guitar that will give you the nitro cellulose finish. And I mean, you saw even under the hood, it had the premium components, the wiring. They go the whole 9 yards with these guitars. And if you have the money and you want a professional grade instrument that's both collectible and playable, fantastic choice. Now that said, as much as I adore the American Vintage II series, I reviewed 3 guitars and you want to know from me which was my favorite. All right, are you ready for that? Before I tell you, I'm gonna remind you, if you're in the market for any gear, click to buy new gear using my link. And trust me, if you're gonna be buying an American Vintage II guitar, it makes it a whole lot easier with those payment plans, so you can check that out. Make sure you hit subscribe, and now I'm ready to tell you my absolute favorite guitar. If you watch my Telecaster Shootout video in these same series head-to-head with Teles, the Classic Vibe really held its own. So the question at the top of this video is, does the Classic Vibe Stratocaster pull its weight with the much more expensive American Vintage II? For the Telecaster, the answer was yes, and I actually chose the Telecaster as the overall, I chose the Classic Vibe Telecaster as the overall winner in that series, and you can watch that video. In this head-to-head, I'm gonna say something which breaks from that Telecaster video. The Classic Vibe did not pull its weight with the hi-fi sound and quality of both the Vintera II and American Vintage II. they were runaway winners, meaning Vintera II and American Vintage II compared to the Squier Classic Vibe. I have a theory about that. I think that a Stratocaster has more components. It has a trem block, the springs, everything's under tension differently than a Telecaster. A Telecaster is such a simple machine that I think what's happening here is that the quality of the components going into the Classic Vibe Strat doesn't make as much of a head-to-head comparison as the Tellies do. I've found the Strat a little lacking in comparison, especially after having been so wowed by the Classic Vibe Telecaster. So the first part of my breakdown here, I'm going to tell you, did the Classic Vibe smoke American Vintage II? No. The answer to me is no. Doesn't mean Classic Vibe is a bad guitar. Still a great Strat for under 500 bucks. I mean, come on, how can you argue with that? But now, between Vintera II and American Vintage II, which is the winner? And this might surprise you, but the absolute best Strat, in my opinion, of this bunch was Vintera II all day long. First of all, I loved the neck feel. It was just a hair thicker than the 1965 Vintage II. However, it wasn't too thick. It sat perfectly in my hand. I got all up and down the fretboard with ease, and it just sounded so freaking good. This is the one and done Strat. I've come back to this a couple different times over the past couple years, and it keeps knocking it out of the park. It's 1,200 bucks. Just go buy it and be done if you want a one and done Strat. I love this guitar. Now, nothing to detract from the American Vintage II series. They are that good. But when you consider playability, when you consider sound, when you consider value, there is no beating, if you want a vintage-inspired Stratocaster, the Vintera II line. I am so consistently blown away by this Strat. And if you're ready to buy it, click my link and shop. It's that easy. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What do you think about all of this? What do you think of the head-to-head? And which is your winner? Which guitar will you buy next and why? I'd love to hear from you. And what comparisons do you want to see? Let me know. Thanks for watching this breakdown. Remember to hit subscribe so you're in it to win it with this Gibson Les Paul giveaway. It's happening real soon, thanks to all of you. Tell your friends, check out the reviews on the channel. And until next time, it's John from Playing Trade Guitars. Thanks for watching and keep playing.